Eberechi Eze will change Arteta's tactics in several ways. To understand why, I'll be analysing Eze's ability to play in two positions, an unexpected change to Arsenal's tactics, and why Eze's arrival could change several players' roles. And there's another reason that only certain people understand when it comes to Eze. I'll be revealing that because I am one of those people. So how exactly does Eze change Arteta's tactics? And which position will he actually play? So prior to Eze's arrival, this was expected to be Arsenal's lineup, with new signings Victor Gyökeres and Martin Zubimendi playing a big part in their approach. And this was supposed to be Tottenham's lineup. Too soon? But anyway, back to Arsenal, and from the average positions against Manchester United, we can see that it resembled an asymmetric 4-3-3. And within this, there may be a clue as to how Arteta plans to use Eze. But there may also be changes needed. To understand what Eze's arrival means, let's break down what he brings and why Arsenal were clearly interested in his unique qualities. What we see from his heat map is that he often operated in the left-hand half space. So not really a winger, but also not really a classic attacking midfielder either. And this is because Crystal Palace played in a 3-4-2-1, which is a formation that is completely different to Arsenal's. Now, this formation meant that Eze was part of the front three, whilst not being tasked with keeping width due to Tyrick Mitchell's deployment as a left wing-back. And within this is a big part of what makes Eze unique as an attacker. He would often find himself in these types of positions for Crystal Palace, operating almost exclusively in those half spaces. And Palace would often surround him with movement, like here with Tyrick Mitchell and Ismail Assar making runs around him, and that allowed Eze to dribble the ball inside and take a shot, hitting the crossbar on this occasion. But those runners are important because without that support, the Forest defence would have easily doubled or tripled up on him, and it's why Eze ranked in the top 30% for successful take-ons across Europe. That and his talent at picking up the ball in those areas and then taking players out of the game, something that is truly unique to Eze at this moment in time when it comes to the Premier League and available assets in the transfer market. And so for Arsenal to get the best out of Eze, one thing is clear. He needs movement surrounding him. So the question then becomes, how do you replicate it? When you look at Arsenal's passing network against Manchester United, it's stark. It really does open up a can of worms that I think a lot of Arsenal fans have seen for some time. And by that I mean there are some big old questions here that if Arsenal are actually going to get anywhere this season, and when I say get there, it means win the league, we know that, this needs to be addressed. So firstly, Arsenal were extremely right side dominant in their ball progression in this one, and have been for a long time, partly because of Saka, but probably because of those eights as well, with Martin Odegaard receiving the most passes of any Arsenal player and doing very little with it. Another player who received the ball frequently on the right-hand side was Bukayo Saka, receiving 21 passes during the game. So 21 passes. Martinelli on the left received 7. Meanwhile, Eze received the most passes of any Crystal Palace in their match against Chelsea, 22. And that was in a game where Chelsea utterly dominated possession. And so we'll come back to exactly how Arsenal should address this. But first, we need to acknowledge the fact that Eze can play more than one position, because that opens the door to another big question. Will Eze be a starting left winger or a central midfielder for Arsenal? Is he taking Declan Rice's spot, or is he taking Martinelli's spot? Well, in midfield, he'd be taking up Declan Rice's spot, whose role has changed somewhat this season, dropping deep in build-up to form a bit of a double pivot with Zubimendi. In the final third, he often then drifted to that left half space to form this triangle with Martinelli and Calafiori. And the inclusion of Eze at left centre midfield would definitely change Arsenal's build-up, because I can't see him dropping as deep as Declan Rice. That's the whole point of him. He is so comfortable within a block. And so when it comes to that mid block, before you get to the low block, having Eze drop out of it is utterly redundant to me, because so few of those players are happy there with the ball, and Eze is truly one of them. Now, Arsenal were clearly trying to form this box for their build-up against Manchester United. So how would they overcome this with Eze in the team higher up? Well, here's one option. Bring in Miles Lewis-Skelly, who is incredibly comfortable at inverting from left back, with Eze staying higher as part of that attacking five. This allows for quicker transitions through the thirds, with Eze and Odegaard being parallel options in the next third. So this role as the attacking midfielder in the left half space could be a role that suits him. It is a role that suits him. But with this allowing Arsenal to have two symmetrical triangles on each side of the pitch, they would look so much more balanced. And you'd have certainly one player in Eze who utterly wants the ball. There are some question marks over Odegaard, but I think maybe there's such a pressure on him to be that guy on the other side that actually it might relieve that pressure, which might allow his confidence to build, because I feel like he's a little bit snowblind a little bit when he gets the ball in those exciting areas. And this would relieve that problem of going from side to side to side, because you would have two players who you can give the ball to quickly through the middle, something Arsenal fans have been screaming for, to have that parallel threat. And you need those players. That's why I have been screaming for Eze to go to Arsenal. That's why it's more important than an out-and-out left winger, because it also allows Zubimendi to be the player that they've bought, to allow him to utilise the strengths that he has, his superpowers. If you're going to buy Zubimendi, get the best out of him, and his ability to punch the ball through the lines with intensity and just quicker than most, that needs to be utilised correctly, and Eze will allow for that. And this could be a useful tool against low blocks. A ball into a central area forces the opposition to be attracted to the ball to prevent a shot or a cross. So Eze's ability to beat players in these kind of areas inevitably will attract defenders towards him, to stifle him as much as possible. And that obviously then creates space for others to move into. So this would certainly be the most attacking use of Eze, best suited against low blocks, plus Rice can then be rested here and there. However, left wing is where Arsenal probably lack the most quality, so will Eze play here? And what needs to happen for that to work? Well, in build-up, it could mean a return to Rice as the box option in that double pivot. Now, you'll notice that Martinelli is on the left. Now, this is to firstly understand what the role of the left winger currently is. Now, Martinelli's heat map against Fulham last season shows that he's by far the furthest player forward, with the bulk of his touches coming pretty close to the byline. Now, this is because Martinelli's pace and willingness to stay high plays a big role in keeping opposition defences cautious. And if that threat isn't there, it can encourage the opposition to be a lot more aggressive in their press. Without this outball of Martinelli, Arsenal's build-up must be perfect every single time, or they face conceding possession. So how can Arsenal overcome this in build-up with Eze at left wing? Well, the answer may be a little bit unexpected to some, but it could be down to Gyökeres's role. Because if we look at the passing network from Gyökeres' Premier League debut, we can see that he was asked to drift to the right to play a part in the right-sided link-up, something that Kai Havertz was actually quite strong in doing last season, in a slightly different style. And whilst Gyökeres received 7 progressive passes, he didn't do much with the ball. And when you look at his heat map for Sporting last season, you can see that he also drifted to the left pretty frequently. He often made these runs into the channel, not too dissimilar to Martinelli's role last season. So for this to work, it could mean that Eze moves centrally in the first phase of build-up, giving Arsenal several options here when building their play. And with one of this season's big tactical trends being teams trying to play through central areas early to disrupt that 4-4-2 mid-block that everyone's kind of doing at the moment, this could work really, really nicely. Eze moving centrally gives Rice an easy progressive pass whilst also attracting opposition towards him. To solve the touchline width, Lewis Skelly will likely be asked to stay wide to stretch the play. Meanwhile, Gyökeres is now targeting that favoured left side channel. Now, build-up is one thing, but how about attacking a low block? From the right-hand side, Arsenal usually have Odegaard in the half space, Ben White as the anchor, and Saka fairly wide to form this triangle. But on the left, this isn't the same, with different player profiles. Eze isn't a player who wants his starting position to be extremely wide on the touchline. Meanwhile, Miles Lewis-Skelly's qualities as an attacker mean that the best use of him isn't as a ball rotation anchor in a deeper role. And as we discussed earlier, Eze needs movement around him to be able to take players on and to be able to beat them. So, to achieve this, one way would be asking Lewis Skelly to attack the width and to stay high, whilst Gyökeres gravitates to the left, making runs into the channel. And then you've got Eze, who's got that freedom to not only carry the ball, but options to pass to around him as he dribbles with the ball, because he has got an incredible ability of dribbling with his head up and seeing what's happening, which would be very similar to what we saw with Ismaila Sarr and Tyrick Mitchell doing at the beginning of the video. So with Eze so comfortable on the ball and offering different quality to Martinelli, it may mean that Declan Rice doesn't need to be on the left side to form that attacking triangle. And from there, that leads to him being given a different kind of license, a license to push high and to be a threat in the box, something that we saw in flashes last season and something that he's certainly improved in. Meanwhile, you're still asking Gyökeres to utilize that channel and to provoke the space in behind, to push the opposition's defensive line deeper and deeper. You could utilize Calafiori, who would look to invert into the position that Declan Rice vacates when moving into the box, ensuring central dominance for Arsenal if they want to recycle the ball, which I know is important to them. I think for me, the only concern with this is the touchline width on that left-hand side. And a possible solution for this could be asking the right back to invert when the ball is on the left, allowing the left back to support the attack. And when the ball is on the other side of the pitch, the left back inverts, allowing Arsenal to have that right-sided triangle. A crucial thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is the feel-good factor of someone like Eze in the team. Not only in terms of his arrival and that lovely smiling face as he makes his way onto the pitch and that full circle moment of being released by Arsenal and now making his way back as the number 10, but the flair that he plays with, the quality that he plays with will get Arsenal fans off their seat. Ask a Crystal Palace fan, ask a QPR fan. You will see how adored he is as a player. And it's because of both the way he plays and the way he carries himself. And that is something that has got nothing to do with tactics, but is so important to this Arsenal team that I think needs that little sparkle of Eze in their life. It could be the difference between them winning and losing the league because the defense is solid. They just need a bit more sparkle up top, and he could facilitate so much for so many. If you want a full breakdown on Gyökeres in Arteta's tactics, by the way, click right here.